When my wife divorced me after 23 years and tried to take everything, she thought I would break. But she didn't know I had been preparing for 6 months. In the end, the kids were with me, and even her mother's house belonged to me. And that was just the beginning. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. When Sarah told me she was taking the kids and moving in with her mother, I nodded calmly, signed the divorce papers without argument, and walked away from 23 years of marriage with nothing but the clothes on my back. What she didn't know was that I had been preparing for this moment for 6 months. "You're pathetic, David," she had said, standing in our kitchen, the one I had renovated with my own hands 3 summers ago. "You'll never amount to anything more than a middle manager at some boring insurance company. I deserve better than this mediocre life." I watched her pack her designer bags, the ones I had bought her for our anniversary last year when money was tight. The same bag she now filled with jewelry I had saved months to afford. She moved with the confidence of someone who believed she held all the cards. "The kids will understand when they're older," she continued, not even looking at me. "They'll see that Mommy had to leave to find happiness." 8-year-old Emma peeked around the corner, her eyes red from crying. 10-year-old Jake stood behind her, trying to be brave but failing to hide his confusion. They didn't understand why Daddy wouldn't be coming with them to Grandma's house. "It's okay," I told them, kneeling down to their level. "Daddy will see you soon." "I promise." Sarah rolled her eyes. "Don't make promises you can't keep, David. My lawyer says supervised visitation is the most you'll get with your work schedule." Her mother, Patricia, appeared in the doorway like a vulture sensing carrion. She had never liked me, never thought I was good enough for her precious daughter. The feeling had been mutual for over 2 decades. "Come along, children," Patricia said in her condescending tone. "Your new life is waiting." As their car disappeared down our street, my street now, I supposed, I stood in the sudden silence of our empty house. The mortgage papers lay on the kitchen counter where Sarah had left them, along with a note explaining that she expected me to keep paying for the children's sake, even though she was moving out. That's when I allowed myself to smile for the first time in months. 6 months earlier, I had discovered Sarah's affair quite by accident. A misdialed number on her phone had connected me to a conversation she was having with someone named Marcus. The intimate details were nauseating, but what caught my attention was their discussion about my finances. "He has no idea how much we're worth," Sarah had laughed. "The fool keeps everything in joint accounts. When I file for divorce, I'll take half of everything, plus child support, plus alimony. He'll be working until he's 80 just to keep me comfortable." Marcus had chuckled appreciatively. "And then we can finally be together without hiding." That night I had sat in my study until dawn, staring at our financial statements. Sarah was right about one thing. We were worth considerably more than she realized, but she was wrong about who controlled what. Over the next 6 months, I had systematically restructured our entire financial life. Every joint account was quietly closed and the funds transferred to new accounts in my name only. The house, which Sarah assumed was in both our names, had actually been purchased entirely with money from my inheritance, something I had neglected to mention during our marriage. Legally, she had no claim to it. The business investments she didn't know about, the offshore accounts she'd never seen statements for, the life insurance policies with very specific beneficiaries. I had spent 2 decades being very careful about money, and now that caution was about to pay dividends. I hired the best divorce attorney in the city, a woman named Rebecca Chen, who had a reputation for being absolutely ruthless. We spent hours preparing for every possible scenario. "Your wife is going to be very surprised," Rebecca had said during our final meeting before Sarah filed papers. "She's assuming you're the same passive man who let her make all the decisions for 20 years. She has no idea what's coming." Now, standing in my empty house, I pulled out my phone and made the first call. "Rebecca? It's David. She's gone. Let's begin." The first blow landed exactly 1 week later. Sarah called me at 6:47 a.m., her voice shrill with panic. "David, what did you do? My debit card was declined at the grocery store." I was sitting in my kitchen enjoying my first peaceful cup of coffee in years. "I closed our joint accounts from Sarah. As of last Tuesday, you're financially independent. Isn't that what you wanted? You can't do that. I need money for the children, for groceries. The divorce papers you filed specifically requested that all marital assets be divided equitably through the court. Until that process is complete, I'm not legally obligated to provide you with anything. I could hear her hyperventilating. But I don't have any money. My mother's house payment is due tomorrow. This was interesting. Patricia's house payment? That sounds like a problem you and Marcus should solve together. The silence stretched for almost 30 seconds. How do you know about Marcus? I've known about Marcus for 6 months, Sarah. Just like I've known about your plans to take half of everything and leave me with nothing. The difference is I actually understand our finances. Her voice dropped to a whisper. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that the house is entirely mine. I'm talking about the business investments you never knew existed. I'm talking about the offshore accounts you never saw statements for. But mostly I'm talking about the prenuptial agreement you signed 23 years ago.
We don't have a prenup. I opened the file folder on my kitchen table and pulled out the document. We do now. Remember that romantic dinner at La Bernardin 2 weeks before the wedding, when you signed all those insurance papers without reading them? One of those was a prenuptial agreement stating that in the event of divorce due to adultery, the offending party forfeits all claims to marital assets. The phone clattered to the floor. I could hear Sarah sobbing in the background while Patricia's voice rose in anger. This is impossible. You can't do this. Actually, I can. And I am. You have 30 days to vacate Patricia's house before the foreclosure proceedings begin. What do you mean foreclosure? I had been saving this revelation for the perfect moment. Patricia's house has been mortgaged 3 times over the past 5 years. The payments are 4 months behind. I bought the note from the bank last month for 60 cents on the dollar. As of yesterday, I own your mother's house. The scream that came through the phone was primal, animalistic. I hung up and finished my coffee in perfect silence. Emma and Jake showed up at my door 3 days later, brought by a social worker named Mrs. Rodriguez. Sarah and Patricia had been arrested for attempting to cash forged checks using my name, a desperate move that had backfired spectacularly. Daddy! Emma threw herself into my arms with the force of a cannonball. Jake followed more hesitantly, still processing everything that had happened. Are you okay? I asked them, kneeling down to their level. Grandma's house was scary, Emma said. There was no food and the water stopped working. Mommy cried all the time. Jake nodded solemnly. She kept saying it was all your fault, but Mrs. Rodriguez explained that Mommy made some bad choices. Mrs. Rodriguez stepped forward. Mr. Peterson, I need to discuss the custody arrangement. Given the current circumstances, the state is prepared to award you full custody, but we'll need to ensure the children's stability and well-being. I looked at my kids, really looked at them. For the first time in months, they looked tired, confused but hopeful. Kids, would you like to stay here with Dad? Forever, Emma asked. Forever. That evening I made their favorite dinner, spaghetti and meatballs with garlic bread. We ate at the kitchen table like a real family for the first time in years. No television, no phones, just conversation about their day, their feelings, their hopes. Dad, Jake said carefully, are you rich? I considered the question seriously. I'm comfortable. More comfortable than your mother realized. But more importantly, I'm your father, and I love you more than money could ever measure. Emma giggled. Does that mean we can get a dog? We can definitely get a dog. 2 months later, Rebecca called with an update that made me laugh until my sides hurt. David, you're not going to believe this. Sarah hired 3 different attorneys to challenge the prenup. All 3 dropped her as a client when they realized she can't pay their fees. I was in my office at the insurance company, but my mind was on the weekend plans I had with the kids. We were going to look at puppies at the animal shelter. What about Marcus? Marcus disappeared the day after Sarah's accounts were frozen. Turns out he was married too, and his wife found out about the affair. She hired a private investigator who documented everything. His divorce is going to cost him approximately $2 million. And Patricia? Patricia's living in a 1-bedroom apartment on the bad side of town. She applied for public assistance last week. The irony is delicious. She spent 20 years telling everyone you weren't good enough for her daughter, and now she's dependent on government aid while you're living in a $500,000 house with full custody of her grandchildren. That weekend, Emma picked out a golden retriever puppy she named Sunshine. Jake chose a border collie mix he called Einstein. We spent the afternoon in the backyard, watching them play together while we planned our summer vacation. "Dad," Emma said, lying in the grass with sunshine sleeping on her chest, "are you happy?" I looked around at my life, really looked at it. My children were healthy and safe. My house was peaceful. My bank account was substantial. My ex-wife was learning harsh lessons about consequences. My former mother-in-law was discovering humility for the first time in her privileged life. "Yeah, sweetheart, I'm happy." 1 year later, Sarah showed up at my door on a rainy Thursday evening. She looked exhausted, humbled, desperate. Her designer clothes had been replaced by thrift store finds. Her perfect manicure was chipped and grown out. "David, please. I need to talk to you." I opened the door wider but didn't invite her in. The kids were upstairs doing homework, and I didn't want to disrupt their routine. "5 minutes," I said. "I made mistakes," she began, the words coming out in a rush. "Terrible mistakes. I was selfish and cruel, and I hurt you and the children. But I've learned from this. I've changed. I'm working 2 jobs now, trying to rebuild my life. I go to therapy twice a week. I found religion. I'm a different person." I listened without interrupting, my face neutral. "I'm not asking to come back," she continued. "I know I destroyed that possibility, but the children need their mother. They need both parents. I'm asking for visitation rights, supervised if necessary. I just want to be part of their lives again." "The children are happy, Sarah. Healthier than they've been in years. Their grades have improved. They sleep through the night. They laugh more. Why would I disrupt that?" Tears streamed down her face. "Because they're my children too. Because despite everything I've done, I love them. Because they deserve to know that people can change, that mistakes don't have to be permanent." I studied her face, looking for signs of manipulation, for the calculating expression that had fooled me for so many years. Instead, I saw genuine remorse, real pain, authentic transformation. "You hurt them," I said quietly. "You walked away from them to chase a fantasy with another man. You put them in an unstable environment with no food or running water. You taught them that love was conditional. I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life making up for it if you'll let me." Emma appeared at the top of the stairs, having heard voices. "Mommy?" Sarah's sob was audible. "Hi, baby." Emma looked at me, then back at her mother, uncertain. Behind her, Jake appeared, his face guarded but curious. "Kids," I said, "go back to your rooms. I'll be up in a minute." After they disappeared, I turned back to Sarah. 1 hour every other Sunday in the park near the elementary school. I'll be there watching. If you're late, if you miss a session, if you do anything to upset them, it stops permanently. Understood?" She nodded so vigorously I thought she might give herself whiplash. "Thank you. Thank you so much. This isn't forgiveness, Sarah. This is me being a better parent than you were. The children deserve the chance to have a relationship with their mother, even if that mother failed them before." She wiped her eyes with her sleeve. "I understand. I won't let them down again." As I watched her walk away in the rain, I realized that revenge had evolved into something else entirely. It wasn't about punishment anymore. It was about consequences teaching lessons, about people learning to be better, about children having the stability they deserved. I'm writing this from my new house, bigger than the old one, with a pool in the backyard and a 3-car garage. Emma is 13 now, captain of her soccer team, honor roll student, confident young woman who knows her worth. Jake is 15, valedictorian candidate, Eagle Scout, young man with clear moral compass and unshakable integrity. Sarah kept her word. Every other Sunday for 3 years, she showed up at the park. She was never late, never missed a session, never did anything to upset the children. Gradually, the supervised visits became unsupervised. Eventually, she earned the right to have them overnight once a month. She's remarried now, to a kind man named Robert who treats her well and respects her past mistakes. They live in a modest apartment, both working honest jobs, both committed to building something real instead of chasing fantasies. Patricia died last year. The funeral was small, attended by Sarah, Robert, the children, and me. At the reception afterward, Sarah approached me. She never apologized, and Sarah said quietly, "Not once, in 3 years of poverty and struggle. She blamed you until the end." "Some people can't change," I replied. The important thing is that you did. My business investments have flourished. My insurance company promoted me to regional director. The offshore accounts have grown substantially. I could retire tomorrow and live comfortably for the rest of my life. But more importantly, my children know they are loved unconditionally. They know that family means commitment, not convenience. They know that actions have consequences, but also that people can change, grow, become better versions of themselves. Sometimes I think about the man I was 4 years ago. Passive, taken for granted, financially manipulated, emotionally abused. That man would be amazed by the life I built from the ashes of his marriage. The best revenge, as it turns out, wasn't taking everything Sarah thought she deserved. It was building a life so good, so stable, so filled with genuine happiness that her betrayal became the best thing that ever happened to me. And every Sunday evening, when the children are asleep and the house is quiet, I pour myself a glass of expensive whiskey, sit on my deck overlooking the city lights, and smile. Justice, I've learned, doesn't always look like punishment. Sometimes it looks like a second chance at happiness, earned through patience, wisdom, and the courage to demand better from life. Sometimes the last laugh is simply living well.